Imagine waking up to the sudden news that the world's most powerful aircraft carrier has just sailed into one of the most politically volatile seas on the planet. On paper, the mission sounds simple: counter drug trafficking. But anyone following the region knows this is only the surface. Venezuela's government is furious, accusing Washington of preparing the battlefield for something much bigger. And behind Venezuela stands an ally that never sits quietly: Russia. As U.S. warships close in and Russian support deepens, the Caribbean begins to look less like a tranquil blue playground and more like the next arena for great power confrontation. Let's break down how we got here. The first domino fell when President Trump approved the deployment of the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group into Caribbean waters. According to U.S. officials, the mission is meant to intensify counter-narcotics operations and cut off drug routes that allegedly involve Venezuela's security apparatus. But the choice of asset immediately raised red flags. The Ford isn't a patrol boat, it's a nuclear-powered fortress designed for global power projection. And that message was heard loud and clear in Caracas. President Nicolas Maduro accused Washington of engineering a pretext for military aggression. His government condemned the move as a direct threat to national sovereignty, warning that the United States was trying to intimidate Venezuela at a time of deep political and economic crisis. Latin American governments reacted with unease too, but the loudest voice came from across the Atlantic. Moscow criticized the deployment as an excessive and destabilizing act, promising that Russia would not abandon Venezuela in its moment of crisis. With just one order from Washington, the U.S. had unintentionally dragged an old Cold War rivalry back into a region that both sides still see as strategically priceless. To understand why this deployment matters, we need to understand what exactly the U.S. just parked off Venezuela's coast. The USS Gerald R. Ford isn't just a carrier, it's the most technologically advanced warship ever built. This massive nuclear-powered giant can launch more sorties per day than any other carrier in history. It carries stealth fighters, airborne early warning aircraft, electronic warfare platforms, and drones. Its escort group includes destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and missile defense ships, together forming a strike package capable of overwhelming any military in the region within minutes. This is the ship Washington used to intimidate adversaries in the Mediterranean and the Middle East. Now it's parked in America's own backyard, facing a government that the U.S. accuses of enabling drug cartels, partnering with Iran, and deepening military ties with Russia. The arrival of the Ford isn't just military posturing, it reshapes the balance of power in the Caribbean. For the U.S., it means rapid strike capability. For Venezuela, it means living under the shadow of a massive floating airbase. And for Russia, it means answering the question, do they stand by Venezuela publicly or militarily? The moment the Ford entered the Caribbean, Moscow made its intentions clear. Venezuela is not standing alone. Russia publicly condemned the U.S. move and reaffirmed its support for Venezuela's sovereignty, calling Washington's deployment aggressive and destabilizing. But Moscow didn't stop at statements. It pointed out that Russian-Venezuelan cooperation is ongoing and already involves military assistance. Now let's address the scenario everyone's been waiting for. Not just Russian air defense units, not just advisors, but Russia's sea monsters entering the Caribbean. Because if Moscow decides to challenge the U.S. Navy head-on, it won't send patrol boats. It will send warships designed to hunt carriers. This is where the tension becomes real. Imagine the USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier, suddenly detecting long-range radar signatures creeping in from across the Atlantic. Not civilian vessels, not commercial tankers, but Russian heavy hitters. The Admiral Gorshkov-class frigate, armed with Zircon hypersonic missiles capable of flying at Mach 9 and striking ships over 1,000 kilometers away, and the nuclear-powered Yasin M submarine, nicknamed Russia's Silent Killer, loaded with Kaliber and Onyx missiles that specialize in carrier-killing missions. Or worse, the Kirov-class battlecruiser, a floating fortress the size of a small town, often referred to as Russia's Sea Monster because of its massive P-700 Granite anti-ship missiles designed during the Cold War to sink U.S. carriers. If even one of these vessels arrives in Venezuelan waters, the Caribbean transforms from a U.S. comfort zone into one of the world's most dangerous naval theaters. Suddenly, the Ford's Air Wing wouldn't just be conducting patrols, it would be actively tracking hypersonic missile threats, submerged hunters, and long-range Russian recon aircraft circling overhead. The entire strike group, destroyers, cruisers, and subs would shift into high alert mode. Now picture this escalation. A US F-35 launches from the Ford for a reconnaissance mission near Venezuela. On the horizon, a Russian Gorshkov frigate locks its radar, quietly broadcasting that it has the range, the sensors, and the hypersonic firepower to engage the carrier itself. Meanwhile, deep underwater, a Yasin M submarine shadows the strike group, listening, calculating, and waiting. The U.S. Navy hasn't faced this kind of high-end competitor in the Caribbean for decades, and this is exactly the point Russia wants to make. By sending its naval heavyweights, Moscow signals that Venezuela is not isolated, not vulnerable, and not facing the US alone. Even if Russia doesn't fire a single shot, the presence of these sea monsters changes everything, forcing Washington to reconsider every move, every strike, every political decision. Because once hypersonic missiles and nuclear-powered submarines enter the equation, miscalculation becomes a nightmare. So how close are we to a showdown? The truth is, neither side wants an open war. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.
All right, Shalom. I'd like to start up by saying, Call Halayim La Yahweh, by Shem Yahushai, by Shem Harikak Wadash Ma'amath. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, and double honors to our elder apostle as well. Herawan Ban Yasharala down here in the Lions Den camp. Salutation to the Akim that are pushing the truth to the Satan and truth, and peace and blessing to the men, women, and children that believe in the name Yahweh by Shem Yahushai. All right, I'm Kanaksa Ban Yasharala from the Lions Den Yasharala camp. And this is another Lions Den news and prophecy. And you know how it goes. Second Ezra chapter 15 and 1. Speak thou unto the ears of my people the words of prophecy which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord, and cause them to be written on paper, because they are faithful and true. All right, so it said the USS Gerald R. Ford deployed to Caribbean amid U.S. and Venezuela tension. Now, it's been there for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now. But apparently, Russia is sending a response to that carrier group, what they call sea monsters. You see that? A fleet that's equipped enough. What does that sound like? Equipped enough to take out the world's largest aircraft carrier. See that? It says the USS Gerald R. Ford, a U.S. aircraft carrier, has been deployed to the Caribbean. I did a couple lessons on that a couple weeks ago. And it says U.S. officials state the move supports counter narcotics operations. Venezuela, however, views the deployment as a potential security concern and has made formal diplomatic protests. Right. I mean, if you're fighting, you could get the Coast Guard to have Coast Guard to intercept drug vessels. That's what the Coast Guard is set up for. I had a friend of mine that used to be in the Coast Guard, and that's what they would do all day, just troll international waters looking for drug boats and stuff. So if that was the case, then this is more to it than that. It's about power and control. And like I did in the lesson yesterday, um, the president of Colombia is like, America's going to have to accept that they're not a world power anymore, that they are just like these other nations. See that? It said Russia has expressed its support for Venezuela and suggested it may send naval assets to the area. The situation has led to increased attention on the Caribbean forum from several countries. All right, so and it's a stage for war. That's what everybody's viewing it as. But that's why Scripture said, "Never trust thine enemy." You see that? Never trust thine enemy, because what? Um, he gonna show his true colors in the end, as because the intentions of the United States has is not for no diplomatic reasons. It's for control. It's for to put fear. They say they will create peace by force. You see that? So what are they're trying to? It's an intimidation tactic, and it's also a provocation of war. That's like if you standing in front of somebody squared off, and they're like, "What's up? What's up? What's up?" And you jump at them like you finna strike them. You know, like you jump at them like you finna strike them. Of course, they're gonna they're gonna defend themselves. They don't have any other intentions to think that America's doing anything but trying to stage war. Because if you send a warship, like the biggest one you got, talking about drugs, come on, man. Come on, man. As you can tell from the video that you know what I'm saying, what the intentions of the United States are by sending that big of a force. You see that? They're trying to wage war in the Caribbean. Or they're saying they really don't want war. Yeah, they don't want war because of the consequences behind it, but they're not taking it off the table. They're hoping that Maduro resigns and on his own will, and they don't have to bring force in it. But like Russia said, like it says in Ezekiel 38, be a guard unto them. Like these other countries are gonna. Then you got Iran talking about they'll step in and help out too, allegedly. Talk about Isaiah 13 and 17, because there's the crazy part about it is there's so many other countries that could have stepped in and intervened to give aid to Venezuela. You know, all those South American countries, Central American countries, they're voicing their opinion, but it's not a coincidence that Russia has stepped up to the plate. And this is not the first time they stepped up to the aid for Venezuela, because when they crushed the economy with those sanctions back in 2018, and that they're still rebounding from that. What Russia came in and helped them build their economy back up, helped stabilize their economy, came to their defense, because if it wasn't for Russia, uh, Venezuela wouldn't even be operating right now as a country, as a nation. You see that? So you can tell it's all being strategically done by Yahweh Shimei Awashai. This is Isaiah 13 and 17. It says, "Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it." All right, so in around like 540, 539 BC, Darius the Mede was sent in by Cyrus to invade Babylon, right? But the Medes in this case represents Russia. See that? It says that their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when Yahweh overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch their tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. See, and this is not then ain't nobody gonna be conducting any businesses here. And it's not gonna be inhabited by humans here. Just doleful swamp like creatures. That's the only thing that's gonna become of Babylon. That's why it's talking about Babylon the Great, which is America, man. So it's strategically being brought forth by Yahweh Bashim Yahushua to the doom of the United States. All right, Lord willing, this lesson edify and serve his purpose for the hope of the elect, the ones that truly believe in the name Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. With that, like Sakal Halayim, like Yahweh, by Shem Yahweh Shai, by Shem, Harakak Wadash, my Amath. Double honors to the elder apostles, the great millstone, and double honors to our elder apostle as well. Hair one by Yashar Allah down here in the Lions in camp. Salutations to the icon that are pushing the truth, sincerity, and truth, and peace and blessing to the men, women, and children that believe in the name Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Shalom.